What is the role of religion in our ever-changing world? From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Issues of Faith.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Issues of Faith. I am Ben Hall. Today, we are talking about reforms in the Catholic Church, specifically Pope Francis. What is he doing? What has he done? And it's a fascinating discussion. We are happy to have with us someone we've had with us before, Father Joseph Breen. Father Breen, thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Served 33 years at St. Edward's, recently retired. You saw the Pope speak before Congress.
Yes.
And so where do you think we are when we're talking about reforms in the Catholic Church and what this Pope is doing?
He is quite revolutionary. In the document that came out a couple of weeks ago called the Joy of Love, he made it very, very clear that teachings in the past that forced people away from the church, who said you were living in sin if you do this or that or whatever, that was the old teaching. He put so much emphasis on your individual conscience, how you relate yourself to the Spirit of God, and that the church, priests especially, should be there to help them form a good conscience where they can come back to the church, receive the sacraments. And in specific cases, we would say if you were divorced, remarried outside, we would say that was sinful. He would call it an irregular union. Doesn't have anything to do with sinfulness, an irregular union, because a lot depends on one's conscience, that one has to know that what he's doing or what she's doing is wrong for something to be evil or sinful.
So how dramatic a change is this? That issue of divorce has been a major issue within the Catholic Church and has probably pushed a lot of people away from the church. So does this change the teaching?
Very much so. The largest Christian church in the United States, Roman Catholic. The second largest Christian group, 30 million plus fallen away Catholics. We don't know how many, but many of those are Catholics in the second marriage who married outside the church without what we call an annulment. They were married, and we say in the past they're living in sin. He made it very clear that that wasn't really the case. He calls it an irregular union, and he says if they're in a good marriage and they would like to come back to the church to receive the communion, he's making it very easy to do so. What he says, follow your conscience. If you're in fidelity with the Lord, you have that loving spirit, then he makes it very clear that you can come back to the church, receive the Lord's Supper, the Holy Communion, and be fully active.
Do you think people understand that? Are you seeing people come back? I mean, you were a priest, again, 33 years at St. Edward's. How difficult was it to deal with this issue of divorce? And I know there are others that in all churches push people away, but let's talk about divorce right now. How difficult was that for your parishioners, and how big a change do you think this would be?
I was fortunate. I was educated in Rome, and I learned what is the meaning of the internal form. And Pope Francis brought this up in his document. The internal form refers to your conscience. And I would meet with these people, follow the procedures that had been set out by Roman authorities years ago, that it is a traditional part of the church, the internal form, a place of judgment. Internal really refers to your conscience. I would ask the people, are they now in a very loving, blessed marriage? And many of them would say, oh, yes. Have you been a good mother or good father if they were parents? Yes. Do they have any obligations paying alimony to a previous spouse? And if all those things are positive, there's nothing that separates them from the love of God. Therefore, they should not be separated from the church. And according to procedures approved by Rome, then they're allowed to come back and be active in the church, receive the communion. This, many people unfortunately will say, this is the best kept secret in the Catholic Church. Most people only know the external form, which is similar or which is the same thing as an annulment. Only 10% of Catholics who are divorced, only 10% will seek an annulment. 50% will marry a non-Catholic in that particular church and join that church. 50%. 40% will either quit going to church altogether, or maybe they will go to church and not receive the Holy Eucharist.
Because an annulment demands some very harsh things, essentially.
Well, in many places, 10, 12, 15 months. Many places, they charge a certain amount of money to cover the charges. And it's quite extensive.
But does it demand that the couple say that they were never in love and it was never...
Right, they try to prove that it never was a marriage.
That it was never a marriage.
From the beginning. And Catholics, as well as many, many, many priests, would say it wasn't effective. As we know, only 10%, that's terrible. And then the fact that we've lost all those people. Pope Francis is the first one that has brought that to our attention. The great scandal of so many fallen away Catholics who don't feel like they're welcome in the church. And Pope Francis, oh, he is just great when it comes to the mercy of God, to forgiveness, reconciliation. He is just outstanding, and that is making a big difference in our church. He also calls upon priests and bishops to have maybe a change of heart. We were taught to be very rigid. This is a rule. This is a regulation. If you don't do this, you're not worthy of the church. You should not go to communion. And he has such a loving spirit, and we're hopeful that the bishops will be the real leaders in sharing that spirit with priests and with the laity.
Is that getting out in Nashville now? Do you feel like the notion that there is this change within the church, and again, let's focus now on divorce, when it comes to divorce?
Well, Pope Francis is the one that has brought it out. 2 years in a row, he had a synod, S-Y-N-O-D. That was a gathering of all the bishops, at least representatives around the world. And he kept telling them, we need to reconcile those people. We need to find ways to bring them back to the church. So he has been advocating that for over 2 years. And he reiterates that in this document. But he uses in there also that internal form that I was speaking about. I was fortunate to be taught that in Rome. That was 4 years ago. So I have been using that along with my brother Philip, who has recently passed. 1 week we went to hear Father Bernard Herring. This was some 40 years ago, Bernard Herring. He preached on the same thing. And I was at a sabbatical hearing in Rome. I believe it was in 78. Sabbatical to get an update on Vatican II. And there were 40 of us. I was the only one that had been educated in Rome. All the others were educated here in America. And the moral theologian from Ireland, very outstanding scholar, was saying, gentlemen, you need to get out of your rectories. You need to get out in the fields and be a good shepherd. Find out all those people who have left the church because of a second or third marriage. And if you don't use the annulment, then use the internal form. At that moment, the hands went up. What's the internal form? And this is why I'm here today, I think, to let the people out there know what the internal form is.
It's all right, I love that. And all right, we're going to take a break, and I'm going to come back, and we'll go into that, and I also want to get into same-sex marriage and some of those reforms as well. So we're going to take a break. We'll take a break, be back right after this.
Sure.